From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Tuesday, June 4. The Northern Territory's anti-corruption boss is embroiled in a personal drama, with The Australian revealing today Michael Rich's lawyers offered his wife $20,000 as a settlement after she applied for a domestic violence order against him. Mr Rich's had made no admissions and denies any wrongdoing. You can read that story right now at theaustralian.com.au. Later in today's episode, a very unusual guest at the wedding of Brittany Higgins and David Sharaz. Plus, all the latest in a case that just keeps rolling. First up today, the immigration disaster engulfing the federal government is getting worse. The latest embarrassing admission from the minister and why the Prime Minister is standing by his man. It was a remarkable claim by embattled Immigration Minister Andrew Giles on Sky News last week.
There is $250 million that we've invested in supporting our law enforcement agencies to enforce that. And that's enabled things like using drones to keep track of these people. We know where they are.
He was talking about more than 150 people with criminal records who've been released by the High Court of Australia. They were all non-citizens of Australia, and some had been convicted of serious violent offences, including murder and child sex abuse. The High Court said the government couldn't keep these people in indefinite detention. The government had tried to deport them to their home countries with no success. So they were set free, and it set off a political nightmare, now entering its 5th month. 2 of the convicts, convicted murderers, had no electronic monitoring.
Where they are.
Why just have them all with electronic monitoring?
Because the law doesn't allow it.
Turns out the claim about the drones was wrong. There are no drones. And on Monday, the minister who's already at the centre of this and another catastrophe had to admit it.
I relied on information provided by my department at the time, which has since been clarified.
Members on my left.
Giles attacked opposition leader Peter Dutton.
This is a bloke who trashed our immigration system, who trashed integrity, who trashed enforcement, who let nearly 1,300 people out, not via a court, not via a tribunal, without any constraints on their behaviour. That's the measure of the man.
That other catastrophe I mentioned, that's where the minister issued a new policy that has inadvertently resulted in more violent criminals remaining in Australia after the government tried to kick them out.
Over the last week, I've cancelled 30 visas in the national interest. By the end of this week, we will have in place a new revised ministerial direction.
And the Prime Minister is backing him in.
We continue to refuse and cancel visas on character grounds. We continue to deport people who have no right to be here. Since coming to government, we've deported over 4,200 individuals from immigration detention.
Bruce Lehrmann is appealing his loss in the giant defamation battle with Network 10 and Lisa Wilkinson. He lodged his appeal on Friday, and he'll be arguing that Justice Michael Lee got it wrong when he found Lehrmann did, on the balance of probabilities, rape Brittany Higgins. Lehrmann has run out of lawyers willing to represent him on a no-win, no-fee basis, so he'll be representing himself. Up against the expert defamation barristers 10 and Wilkinson will no doubt engage. They'll likely request the court order Lehrmann to pay a surety up front to ensure they do get paid if they win. If the appeal goes ahead, Brittany Higgins will likely need to spend more time in court. But on Saturday, Higgins got to enjoy a moment of pure joy. The former Liberal staffer married her partner of 4 years, David Sharaz. The wedding was held at the ritzy Valley Estate in Currumbin on the Gold Coast. The bride wore a dress by Australian designer Paolo Sebastian and a big beaming smile. Higgins posted to Instagram after the ceremony, "Today, I married my best friend." Security at the event was tight, with members of the media kept well away, although some did make the guest list. Among the 80 or so people invited was TV producer Judy McCrossan, who's optioned the movie rights to Brittany Higgins' unpublished memoir about her Parliament House ordeal and everything that followed. One guest caught our eye is David Sharaz's psychic friend, Carrie de Block. The Australian's Margin Call column is reporting Sharaz has turned to de Block for guidance many times over his years in Canberra. Coming up, what's waiting for Brittany Higgins and David Sharaz on the other side of the honeymoon? While I've got you, we'd love you to get more of this journalism by subscribing to The Australian. Our subscribers get breaking news alerts direct to their phones, newsletters, special events, and the most lively and detailed news, analysis and commentary around the clock. Check us out at theaustralian.com.au, and we'll be back after this break. Just last week, as former Liberal staffer Brittany Higgins prepped for her big day, her legal representatives were back in front of a judge at the David Malcolm Justice Centre in Perth. Higgins is being sued by her former boss, Senator Linda Reynolds, for social media posts made last year. Reynolds says her reputation was damaged by the posts made separately on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter.
I would like to commend Justice Lee on all of his findings, and I think it is time that all parties in this accept all of his judgments, and that includes the Finance Minister, the Attorney General and the Attorney General's Department. It is time for them to admit they got it wrong.
David Sharaz was also on the hook, but he's stepped back from the matter, saying a trial would bankrupt him. This latest legal action has had several false starts, with mandated mediations breaking down more than once. Now Senator Reynolds is attempting to uncover the details of a protected trust in Brittany Higgins' name. Her lawyers believe it's been set up to shield a $2.4 million compensation payout from litigation. Reynolds' lawyer, Martin Bennett, said last month he's been waiting to receive a copy of the trust deed since March. He believes it holds important details that will clarify its purpose. Basically what they're trying to decipher is if Brittany Higgins could actually pay damages or legal costs to Linda Reynolds if a judge finds the former senator was defamed. The matter will head to trial in late July. Late last month, the other defamation matter, where Bruce Lehrmann unsuccessfully sued Network 10 and Lisa Wilkinson, was back before the federal court. Front listeners know Lehrmann lost overall because Justice Michael Lee found he did, on the balance of probabilities, rape Brittany Higgins in 2019. As you know, he's appealing that verdict.
Having escaped the lion's den, Mr. Lehrmann made the mistake of coming back for his hat.
But Justice Lee had big problems with Network 10 and Lisa Wilkinson's journalism, and they lost on their other defence, which was qualified privilege. That is, their journalism was reasonable. The judge said it wasn't reasonable. Lehrmann will have to pay most of 10 and Wilkinson's costs, but it's unlikely he has the multi-millions required to settle their bills. Now Wilkinson and 10 are trying to sort out who pays which parts of her legal bills. This after the trial ensured all 10's dirty laundry was well and truly aired. How it effectively sacked Wilkinson from her on-air role after she made an unfortunate Logie speech, even though 10 had legaled and approved the speech. How it tried to persuade her not to engage her own lawyers. And how, after Brittany Higgins indicated she didn't like Wilkinson's chosen lawyers, how 10 tried to get its former star to choose different representatives.
Good afternoon. We start with breaking news, and the judge has just handed down his decision in Lisa Wilkinson's case against Network 10. She was asking for 10 to cover her costs in the defamation case against Bruce Lehrmann.
10 is still quibbling about how much of Wilkinson's bills it should pay, but it all came out in the open at the most recent hearing. Wilkinson's total bill so far is $1.8 million. That includes $8,000 per day in court for top defamation silk Sue Chrysanthou SC, plus $800 per hour for preparation work, sending emails and travel time. It also includes another $3,500 per day for the junior barrister working with Chrysanthou, Barry Dean. And then the solicitors, who charged Wilkinson up to $750 per hour for their work on the case. That firm, Gillis Delaney, charged $390 for one phone call and $16 for a subscription to The Australian. At least they've got impeccable taste. You can join them by subscribing to The Australian today. And needless to say, it's a lot cheaper than a top barrister's time. Check us out at theaustralian.com.au.